So there are tons of videos here on YouTube and articles out there about affordable Rolex alternatives, specifically speaking about the Rolex Explorer. Today we're going to actually take a look at an affordable alternative to the Rolex Explorer. So yes, I am adding on to the pile of the hundreds of videos out there. However, today's video is a little bit different. This watch I think is actually just as good or maybe better than the Rolex Explorer, and it comes in at a fraction of the price. It also has a lot of history. It came out at around the same time as the Rolex Explorer, and I think it looks just as good as that watch. So let's flip the camera and take a look at an Explorer style watch from Nivada, the Super Antarctic. So here on my channel, I have featured a few Nivada Grecian. I've actually featured the Chronomaster, which is a chronograph, and I also featured their dive watch, which is the Depth Master. Both of those watches are reissues of vintage Nivada Grecian, and they were done perfectly, and that's something that I said in the reviews for those watches. I thought that the execution was spot on. They really didn't take any liberties. They literally put them out one for one, just as the originals were. There were some slight changes because they were obviously modern watches, or are modern watches, so you're getting things like sapphire crystals and updated movements and things like that. However, pretty much exactly the same watches, just done in a modern way. And today we're taking a look at another remake of a 1950 release. This is the Antarctic. This is the Super Antarctic 369, obviously because of the 369 dial. And this is called the Brown No Vintage. So essentially, this is a brown dial, except there is no vintage effect that they have applied to the dial, because they have released other versions with a vintage effect, and that effect went on the hands, on the indices, and on the dial. Also, the lume got a vintage effect. This still looks very vintage. Looking at this dial, it's a brown dial. It looks like a tropic dial. However, it's clean, it's crisp, and so are the hands and the indices, the lume, very clean and crisp. So obviously they know what they're doing here. Not many people are going to go for that vintage look. Some people will. Me personally, I think that's really cool, but I also can appreciate this, and I think a lot more people want to have something a little bit crisper and clean, so they came out with a clean version as well. This looks sharp, and obviously it's a vintage Explorer watch. They have a very rich history. This watch was actually made famous by the American Navy's Deep Freeze 1 task force during their expeditions to the South Pole, and that was in the 1950s as well. I think it was 1955 through 1956. They actually put a medallion on the back of this watch in a gold tone that was used to commemorate those trips. I'll do a close-up so you could see what I'm talking about. It's a really nice touch on the back of this watch. It sort of reminds you of what you see from like a vintage King Seiko. It's beautiful. It really is just a nice touch. That gold on the back of the case, it looks beautiful. Now, this is vintage sized. It looks vintage. You're getting a boxed sapphire crystal, and you get a screen and crown with 100 meters of water resistance. As I mentioned, this is called the 369 because you do have the 369 on the dial, and then you have a triangle for the 12 o'clock. Applied indices, and the hands are all filled with lume. That lume is a vintage Super Luminova, and we will do a lume shot towards the end. Lume is actually pretty good on this watch, obviously better than the original, and that's kind of the point. This is a modernized version of the original Super Antarctic. Let's do measurements really quickly. And also, I do want to mention, this is on a Forstner strap. So this is not really a strap, it is a clip bracelet, which is very, very in keeping with the vintage style. Not many people will wear it on this. I asked them to put it on this strap, because on this bracelet, because I think it looks and fits the part. Original watches would have been worn on either probably a NATO strap or something like this, maybe a stretchy band. They are a little bit annoying to wear or use. Actually not to wear, to use. So this is a 38 millimeter watch. But it does have a few benefits. Number one is the lug to lug. If you were wearing this on, let's say, an oyster style or beads of rice, you're going to have male end links. So I wanted to avoid that, and of course you're going to get a lug to lug of 44.8, and at the bracelet 43.2. So you are really benefiting from having straight end links on here, and it does look cool. In my opinion, I think it looks cool. It is a little bit of an annoyance to put on and off, but that's not that bad. And then the crown on the smaller side, 5.2 millimeters. It is signed. And then the thickness, including that sapphire crystal and back medallion, 11.3 millimeters thick, 100 meters of water resistance. You do get a screwed-in crown and screwed-in case back. So there you go. This is a really beautiful watch that is very well executed. Obviously, it's in line with something like a Rolex Explorer, but it has its own history. They both came out at around the same time, so this definitely has its own provenance. It looks the part. There are a few drawbacks on the design here. I believe that the crown is a little too small, but I think it's in keeping with the original watch, so I really cannot give the watch a ding for that. The only thing is, I would say that there is no lume on the second hand for an Explorer watch. I like to have lume on the second hand. Same thing for a dive watch. I think it's meant for sort of being a tool watch, so having a little bit of lume on the second hand makes sense to see that your watch is still working in the dark. That would be the only two drawbacks to the design here. Very crisp, very clean, very handsome watch. Also, this is powered by a Soprod movement. If you guys are not familiar with the Soprod P024, essentially a clone of the 2824, but Soprod obviously make very good movements, and this is a very reliable movement, so definitely solid workhorse movement inside this watch. And there are a few brands out there that have been switching over to the Soprod because obviously they do make good movements, and they are very reliable. So before we throw the Antarctic on my 7.5 inch wrist, I'd like to show you the watch that I have on today. It is my Creedor. This is the Pacifica, and this is a recent purchase of mine. I haven't worn it in a few weeks, but I absolutely love this watch. It's a awesome chronograph with a 6S movement inside, so it's a very high-end movement for Seiko, Creedor, Grand Seiko. Grand Seiko actually don't use this movement, but very, very cool watch. Well, there you go. On my 7.5 inch wrist, this is a really good looking watch, and I think it looks great on this bracelet. The bracelet is a little bit hard to put on and off. Obviously, they offer this on a NATO strap, on a leather strap, and also a few different bracelet options, which are just traditional bracelets with folding clasps. So if you want something that's more straightforward, definitely get one of those, but this looks the part in my opinion. Also, it works sort of like a NATO strap, so it fits really well to your wrist. It doesn't need to be adjusted. It's almost infinitely adjustable, and it just looks the part in my opinion. All in all, a really good looking watch, 38 millimeters, around a 45 millimeter lug to lug, and it wears very, very comfortably and around 11 millimeters thick, so you really can't go wrong. Price on this, it is $750, which I think is an excellent price for what you're getting here. $750, I believe, on the strap, and then if you want to get a bracelet, it's a little bit more money, and then I think if you get something like this, it's somewhere in between. It's not as expensive as the beads of rice, but it's a little bit less expensive, or a little bit more expensive than, say, a NATO strap or leather strap. I would go this route. That's why I went this route, but obviously totally up to you. There aren't many of these left. I think they do have the brown dial with white lume left. Obviously they will be restocking these. However, they are selling very quickly. They are very, very popular, obviously, because this is a true Rolex Explorer alternative at an incredible price. So something to definitely keep in mind. Well, there you go. Lume is very good on this watch. Very solid. Very evenly applied to the indices and hands. The hands might be a little bit brighter, but I think they're in line with the indices as well. Really great lume. The only problem that I have with the lume, obviously, is that the second hand is not lumed. I wish it was. Just a little bit of a tip, maybe a counterbalance, that would have been great. However, other than that, I really don't have many complaints about the lume at all. It lasts pretty long as well. All right, guys, well, tell me what you think down in the comments below. I obviously think this is a very good looking watch. It is a Rolex Explorer style watch, but it does have its own history. It came out around the same time as the Rolex Explorer. So if you're looking for an affordable alternative to the Rolex Explorer, this is a very good alternative to that watch. Obviously, the Explorer has become more expensive over time. This is around $750, which is not a lot of money considering what you're getting. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Anyway guys, thank you for logging on. I will catch you in the next video.